The parking lot at my parents' house was already full when I pulled in. My brother's truck, my aunt's minivan, 3 cars I didn't recognize. I sat for a moment with the engine running, a single grocery store bouquet of yellow flowers on the passenger seat, cellophane still crackling from the cold. Then I cut the engine and got out. My cousin met me at the door before I could knock. She looked at the flowers, then at me, with that particular expression people reserve for someone they've decided to feel sorry for. "Come in, Maya," she said. "Everyone's here." Everyone was. The house smelled of pot roast and the vanilla candle my mother burns for every occasion that requires impressing someone. Coats were piled 3 deep on the rack. My aunt had claimed the good armchair near the fireplace. My uncle was already on his 2nd beer. And my sister was standing in the center of the living room with her husband beside her, showing photographs on her phone to a half circle of nodding relatives. My sister had just been named regional director at her firm. She was 34 and looked the part. Blazer, good earrings, the specific posture of someone who had recently been validated. Her husband worked in finance. They had a house in a suburb people mentioned by name when they wanted to signal they had arrived somewhere. My mother's voice when she spoke about my sister had a particular register, warm and slightly breathless, the way people talk about something they feel they personally accomplished. My mother saw me from across the room. "Maya," she called. "You actually made it." I smiled and held up the flowers. Wouldn't miss it. She took them with both hands and immediately set them on the kitchen counter, not in a vase. "Nice," she said. "Your sister brought wine from that place in Napa she and Derek visited." Derek, my brother-in-law, materialized at my sister's elbow. He glanced at me the way people glance at a cloud briefly, to assess whether it's going to be a problem. "How's the freelance thing going?" he said. It wasn't quite a question. "Fine," I said. "Good, actually." He nodded the way people nod when they're already thinking about something else. My sister turned from her audience to look at me. She had the same face she'd had since we were children, pretty in a way that knew it was pretty, with a smile that could mean almost anything. "You look tired," she said. "I'm not," I said. She tilted her head. "Are you still in that apartment? The one near the warehouse district?" "Same one," I said. She made a small sound. "I keep telling Mom you should let us help you find something better. There's a complex near us with reasonable rent. You could probably afford it if you," she paused, "consolidated some things." The word consolidated sat in the air between us, like a politely placed insult. I said I was happy where I was, and went to find something to drink. My uncle intercepted me in the kitchen. He was the kind of man who considered himself plain-spoken, which meant he said things other people thought better of. "So what's the situation?" he said. "Last I heard you quit your job at the agency." "I left the agency," I said. 2 years ago. I do my own thing now." "What kind of thing?" "Product development," I said. "Supply chain work. I have a company." He looked at me with the patient expression of someone waiting for the real answer. He said, "Like an online store type thing?" "Something like that," I said. He clapped me on the shoulder the way people do when they're substituting sympathy for understanding. "Good for you," he said. "My neighbor does Etsy. Makes decent side money. Nothing wrong with a hobby that pays a little." I poured myself a glass of water and let the comment pass through me. Dinner was my mother's pot roast, which she made for every family gathering regardless of season or preference, and which nobody was allowed to call anything but wonderful. We sat around the extended table, elbows close, the particular intimacy of too many people in a room designed for fewer. My sister and Derek had the seats nearest my parents. I had the end, between my teenage nephew, who was attending entirely to his phone, and my aunt's husband, who fell asleep during grace and woke up confused. "Your sister's news is so exciting," my mother said to the table, though she was looking at me when she said it. "Regional director," my father said. "We're proud." He said it the way he said most things, carefully, with the weight of a man who understood that tone communicated what words didn't. "It's a big jump," my sister said, with practiced modesty. "A lot more responsibility. Derek had to basically hold down everything at home while I was in transition." She touched his arm. "I couldn't have done it without the support." The table made appreciative sounds. My aunt said something about balance. My mother said something about raising strong daughters. My father refilled his water glass. My cousin, who was 26, and had recently discovered an interest in other people's lives, leaned toward me. "What about you, Maya? Anything new?" The table quieted in the specific way, Table's quiet when everyone already knows the answer is going to be uncomfortable. I'm in a good place, I said. But what does that mean for work? She said. Are you still doing the she searched for the word the independent thing? I have a company, I said again. It's doing well. My sister smiled at her plate. Her smile was the sound of patience being performed. Derek set down his fork. What does it actually sell? He said. Sustainable materials, I said. We work with manufacturers to replace synthetic components with biodegradable alternatives, mostly in consumer goods packaging, textiles, some construction applications. He looked at my sister. She looked at him. They had a full conversation in that look. So like eco-products, he said. Sustainable materials technology, I said. It's a different category. My uncle pointed his fork at me. Is there money in that? Real money? There's money in it, I said. He shrugged. I just ask because it seems like a tough space. Very competitive. Lot of companies try that angle and it doesn't pan out. I know the space pretty well, I said. My sister set her wineglass down with a softness that was deliberate. Maya, she said, and her voice had shifted into the register she used when she was about to say something she would later describe as just being honest. I say this because I love you. You've been doing this for 2 years and I've never seen a website, never seen a product, never actually seen any evidence that this is a real business, and not just she paused, choosing the word a project. There's no shame in pivoting. Derek's firm is actually hiring for account management. It's not glamorous, but it's stable. You could have benefits, an actual salary, a 401k. The table was very quiet. You'd have something to show for it, she said. My nephew, without looking up from his phone, said quietly, damn. I picked up my fork. The pot roast was good. It was always good. My mother made it the same way every time, and it tasted like every other family dinner I had ever sat through, patient and unchanged. We moved to the living room after the plates were cleared. My mother brought out the coffee. My sister pulled up more photographs. A trip they were planning, a renovation they were considering. My father sat in his chair and watched his family with the expression of a man who had worked hard for rooms full of people and found the rooms sufficient. My aunt asked me if I was seeing anyone. My uncle asked me if I'd considered going back to the agency. My cousin asked me, in a lowered voice that everyone could hear, whether I needed money, because she had a little saved and family was family. I said I was fine. I said I was really fine. I let the word fine do the work that explaining would have taken too long to do. Then my brother came out of the kitchen where he'd been on a call. He was 3 years older than me, the quiet one in the family, the one who observed more than he spoke. He had a strange expression on his face, not alarm exactly, but something adjacent to it. He was looking at his phone and then at me and then at his phone again. Hey, he said. His voice was careful. Maya, can I ask you something? Sure, I said. He turned the phone screen toward me. It was a financial news article, pulled up on a browser. The headline was large. I read it and felt something shift in the room's atmosphere, though only I knew why. He said, slowly, Is this you? My sister looked up. Derek looked up. My mother put down her coffee cup. I looked at my brother's phone. The article was from a publication that covered sustainable technology and emerging markets. It had been filed 3 hours ago. The headline read, Verdant Labs closes $340 million Series C, valuing sustainable materials startup at $2.1 billion. Below the headline was a photograph of me at a conference in Seattle, 6 weeks prior, shaking hands with the lead partner of one of the largest climate-focused investment funds in the country. The caption below the photograph read, Maya Chen, founder and CEO of Verdant Labs, following the announcement of the company's landmark funding round. My brother set the phone on the coffee table so everyone could see it. The room did something I had never quite seen a room do before. It went still in the way that isn't peaceful, the way that is the absence of all the things people were about to say. My father leaned forward. He looked at the screen. He looked at me. Nora, he said, and then corrected himself. Maya, is that your company? Yes, I said. He said nothing for a long moment. Then, $2 billion. That's the valuation, I said. It's different from revenue. But yes, my mother's hand had moved to her mouth. Her eyes were doing something complicated. She said, But you never said. I said I had a company, I said. I said it was doing well. Derek's face had undergone a transformation I found difficult not to notice. The careful condescension had drained out of it, replaced by something rawer, not admiration, not exactly, but the particular expression of a man recalibrating a room he thought he had already mapped. My sister was looking at the photograph on the phone. She was very still. Her wine glass was in her hand, but she wasn't drinking. She was reading the article the way people read things when they are hoping the words will rearrange themselves into something more manageable. "That's a real conference," she said, almost to herself. "In Seattle. I was there in October," I said. She looked up at me. "Why didn't you tell us?" "I tried to say something about the sustainable materials technology," I said. "And the money in it." "That's not," she stopped. "That's not what I meant. I meant, why didn't you say how big it was?" "You didn't ask how big it was," I said. "You asked if it was real." My cousin had her own phone out now. My aunt was leaning over her shoulder. My uncle had set down his beer. My nephew, for the first time all evening, had put down his phone and was looking at me with an expression of pure, uncomplicated interest. 40 employees? He said, reading over someone's shoulder. "Just over 200 now," I said. "We hired aggressively after the Series B." My brother sat down. He looked at me with an expression I recognized from childhood, the look he had when something had happened that he didn't yet have language for. "You've been sitting here all night," he said. "I've been sitting here all night," I said. "While Mom offered you Derek's company's job listing, I kept my face neutral. I'm sure the benefits are good." My mother made a sound that was not quite a word. She stood up from her chair and then sat back down. She said, "Maya, we didn't know." "I know you didn't," I said. "We would have, if we had known." "What would you have done differently?" I said. The question wasn't cruel, though it landed in the room like something with weight. I said it quietly. "I'm genuinely asking. Would you have asked better questions? Or would you have decided I was getting above myself and needed to be brought back down?" My mother looked stricken. My father looked at his hands. "I'm not asking to be unkind," I said. "I'm asking because for 2 years I have sat at this table and said I have a company and it's doing well, and every time, someone in this room decided that what I meant was that I had a hobby that I was embarrassed about, and I am curious what information would have changed that." Nobody spoke. My sister put her wine glass down. Her voice was different now, smaller, and I thought, for the first time in years, that she sounded like herself rather than the version of herself she performed at family dinners. She said, "I told you to take Derek's company's job." "You did," I said. "I said there was no shame in pivoting." "You did," I said. She looked at the phone on the table. She looked at the photograph of me at the conference. She looked like she was doing math she hadn't expected to need. "I wasn't trying to humiliate you tonight," I said. "I wasn't sitting here waiting for this. That article dropped today. I didn't plan this." "I know," she said. And then, very quietly, "I'm sorry." The words sat there, unadorned. I could see that they cost her something. "I appreciate that," I said. "I meant it." My father cleared his throat. He looked at me with an expression I could not fully read, some combination of pride and remorse, and something that might have been respect, which is a different thing from love and sometimes harder to come by. He said, "How did you do it?" "All of it." Without saying anything. "It wasn't a secret," I said. "It was just mine. I needed it to be mine for a while, before it was a story anyone else could tell." He nodded slowly. I think he understood that in a way some of the others might not. My uncle said, "I compared it to an Etsy shop." "You did," I said. He laughed a little. The laugh was genuine and embarrassed in equal measure. "I'm going to be thinking about that for a while." I smiled. "I think that's fair." My nephew said, "Can I work there someday?" And the room laughed. And the laughter was different from the kind earlier in the evening, looser, relieved, like air escaping something that had been sealed too long. My mother brought out more coffee. My father asked real questions, the kind that required real answers, and I gave them. My brother sat close to me for the rest of the evening, not saying much, just present in the way he had always been present. My sister and I did not perform closeness we didn't yet have, but at the end of the night she held the door for me, and I thanked her, and something small and honest passed between us. "Before I left," she said, "I really am sorry. I said things tonight that weren't kind." "You said things you believed," I said. "That's different from being unkind on purpose." I believed wrong things. You believed what I let you believe, I said. I could have corrected the record earlier. I made a choice not to. I own that too. She looked at me. Why didn't you? She said. Correct us, I mean. Because, I said, I needed to know who you were when you thought I had nothing. That tells you more about a person than anything else. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, And what did you find out? I looked at her, my sister, in her blazer, with her good earrings and her Napa wine and the posture of someone recently validated, and I thought about the sorry she had said, small and unembellished, in front of everyone. That you're someone who can apologize, I said. That matters more than you know. I drove home through streets that were dark and quiet and mine. My phone had 17 notifications. The article had been picked up by 2 larger outlets since I'd last checked. My head of communications had texted, Great timing on the family dinner, huh? I sent back a single emoji that did not fully communicate what the evening had been. At a red light, I sat with the engine running and the heater going and thought about all the dinners before this one. Every pot roast, every careful question, every moment I had eaten quietly while the room arranged itself around my sister's achievements. I had not been waiting for tonight. I had not been building toward it, but it had come anyway. The way things tend to come when you stop trying to control the timing simply, and all at once, and with no ceremony at all. The light turned green. I drove the rest of the way home thinking about what I would build next, because that was always what I thought about, because the work had never been about proving anything to anyone in that room. It had been about the work. It had always only been about the work, and the work, I knew, was just beginning.